Yeah, Death Metal Racing Shorty touring levers. Let's go. All right, so here we have the Death Metal Racing Shorty touring levers. Pretty cool company. They've been around for a long time. They make a lot of cool stuff. If you check out their website, they have different styles, options for older, newer models. Make sure you go check them out. I'll put a link down in the description below. So yeah, I wasn't looking for levers, but I just happened to run across a picture of these red levers on one of those social media network sites. And I said, hey, those would look really good on the red Road Glide. I've been running those stock levers for quite some time now, so it's time to get those swapped out. So really looking forward to getting these on. These are really simple to install, so should be a quick and easy video. Let's go. All right, so for tools, I did use some waterproof grease, snap ring pliers, torque wrench, a small ratchet, T25, T27. Now because I do have the serial perch mount, I did use a 3/16 hex bit and a 2-inch extension. Now for snap rings, if you do lose one or you bend it out of shape, now you can purchase them at Harley Davidson, or I just purchased a kit off of Amazon. These work pretty well. I'll put a link down in the description below. So on the 2020 Road Glide, you do have the hydraulic clutch, so it's a lot more simple to get this one off. Unlike the cable clutch where you have to loosen everything up, you have to take all of this off, and then also you have a pin that connects it to the actual cable clutch, and then you have a spring back here that you have to work in. You have to take the perch mount off. Now because this is a hydraulic clutch, you just have your pin, your pivot pin or retaining pin, whatever you want to call it, that goes all the way through to the bottom. And then you have a C-clip or a snap ring that you have to take off. You need some snap ring pliers. Now you can do it with a screwdriver, but I suggest just getting a pair of snap ring pliers that actually fit these, and then you can get this out. Now the easiest way to get the snap ring off is to apply some pressure on the top of the pin so it doesn't move up and down. That way you can get your snap ring pliers in there and get that ring off. Now if you're reusing your snap ring, you don't want to spread them out too far, because then you'll end up warping it and they won't sit properly on your pin anymore, and then you'll have to purchase new snap rings. So from here, just push up on the pin. Your pin will pop right out and your lever comes right out. So inside the switch housing and clutch lever housing, you have your piston that actuates the slave cylinder, and then you have that white switch. Now if your bike doesn't start in gear and it only starts in neutral, that switch might be stuck inside the switch housing. So you can use a screwdriver, make it pop back out, and then your bike will start in gear. Now you want to make sure that you match up this lever with the Death Metal Racing lever. You don't want to put the brake side on the clutch side. It's not going to fit right. So just make sure you're using the right lever on the right side. Now when you put the new lever in, you do want to grease it up the same way that this is greased up. So I'll clean all this out, I'll apply some new grease, and then get it installed. So here you have the Death Metal Racing clutch lever. You can go ahead and just match these up. They look just alike. If you turn them, they have the same pattern where your pivot pin or your retaining pin goes through. Pretty much anywhere you have metal on metal contact, you want to grease that up. I'll also apply some on the pin. You don't need to put a lot. A little bit goes a long way. So here we have the clutch lever. I went ahead and greased up all the contact points where it's going to be metal on metal. Now when you're sliding your lever in, you want to make sure that this piston that actuates the slave cylinder is sitting inside the hole. You don't want this to be cockeyed or slanted, or you can possibly damage the pin inside of here. You also want to keep note of your switch on your switch housing. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to get that stuck. Now you can get it unstuck, but then you're gonna have to take this out in order to get that unstuck. So I'll go ahead and get this set in there. Then I'll just take my pin, I'll stick it in through here. So looking behind here, everything is set properly. I can see that that switch on the switch housing is not stuck. So it's gonna let me start my bike in gear. Everything is functioning like it should. I'll go ahead and put my snap ring back on. I'll apply some pressure to keep the pin from coming up. Now, anytime you install a new clutch lever, you just want to recheck the play to see where you want it. So here we have the brake side. Now the brake side is a little bit more involved. You have the same retaining pin or pivot pin with the snap ring on the bottom, but in order to get the brake lever out, you do have to remove the perch mount, and then you can loosen up the switch housing in order to get everything to set properly back inside. Now for the perch mount, I do have the Serial 3D perch mount that allows me to add accessories. Now most likely, if you don't have this, you have T27 screws, and for the switch housing, it'll be T25 screws, one on the top and one on the bottom. Now usually when there's more than one tool involved, I like to cover up the tank. Now when you're taking this off, you just want to make sure you have a hold of your brake assembly. So you have the rear perch mount, and then you have the front. You can just work that off. And then from here, we'll go ahead and get the pin out and get the brake lever out. So now I'll remove this pin. You have that snap ring on the bottom. Same thing, I'll apply some pressure so it doesn't slide up and down. And then your brake lever should come right out. Same thing on this side. I'll get this all cleaned out and I'll apply some new grease. Now same thing with the brake lever. You want to make sure that this piston that actuates the brake is sitting inside this hole. We'll get everything lined up. Now when you're tightening these down, you want to make sure that you're tightening down evenly. Now before I tighten this down all the way, I'll sit on the bike just to get everything where I want it. You also want to check your throttle, make sure it's still functioning properly, that nothing got set out of place. Now the torque value for the left and the right side hand control module housing screws is 35 to 44 inch-pounds. And the torque value for the front brake master cylinder clamp screws is 60 to 80 inch-pounds.